Hi, everyone. It's a beautiful Sunday here in Chicago. It's Richard here from Calvin Wazoo, and I have a new musical discovery for you. So it's new for me. For some of you, you probably know all about this guy. So I'll just tell you right away who we're talking about and show you one of the albums that I'll be discussing. That's this. The artist's name is Cornelius, who birth name is Keigo Oyamada from Japan. And I found out about Cornelius through a discussion in another Facebook group. It's not a music group. It's another group of we were talking about that some of us had an interest in vinyl collecting and a broad spectrum of music. And I was talking about some Japanese math rock and jazz that I was listening to on YouTube and was just really, and I still am very enthralled with this music. And I've been making a list of, artists and recordings that I would like to get. And then one of the other folks in the group mentioned to me in a comment about Cornelius, that he was very familiar with Cornelius, but not so much with these other groups that I had been mentioning. So I looked up Cornelius and found some music videos of his work and started listening to it on YouTube. And I was like, wow, I really, really like this. This is interesting. It's music that is difficult to pinpoint, but if the broadest category I would say is definitely it is postmodern. But he mixes lots of other styles and genres into his music making. And while sometimes his records can sound like they're just all over the place, they're not. He has this distinct sound and profile that is very recognizable in terms of, his music. So he was a self-taught guitarist, and he played with some other bands in what was the known as the Shibuya-kei, or maybe it's Shibuya-kei bubblegum scene, which also produced Pizzicato 5. Now, Pizzicato 5 is another group that I really, really like, but all I have of their material is on CD. Their vinyl is often really expensive, and I'm going to have to either get it shipped from Europe or Japan. So I haven't bought any vinyl releases of theirs. But Cornelius, he was born in 1969, so that makes him 51 and roughly, a decade younger than myself. And as I began to say, he's a self-taught guitarist, but it was really weird when I was looking up some information on him. His musical influences, at least early on, were Kiss and Black Sabbath, which I guess kind of makes sense because right around the middle to, Black Sabbath was certainly established at the time of Cornelius's birth. Kiss, on the other hand, would have been more towards the middle 70s and later 70s. So he would have been familiar with them, in his tween years, I guess. But I just found that kind of weird that those were his musical influences. I definitely hear influences of the kind of that Shibuya-kei bubblegum pop that Pizzicato 5 is very well known. But his use of that same style is also just really, really amazing. So I guess one of the primary bands that he was with was called Flipper's Guitar, a Japanese band. But after they broke up, that's when he adopted the name Cornelius, rather than by going by his birth name of Keigo Oyamada. And this was, Cornelius. It's an homage to Planet of the Apes and the character Cornelius. In fact, later when he got married, they named their son by Cornelius's son's name from the film. So anyway, he's just extraordinary player, a musician, but also a really incredible composer and arranger with his work. He easily moves from the bubblegum pop to math rock, to shoegaze, to minimalist synth pop. He has songs that have Brazilian rhythms and others that are complete electronica. So it can almost sound like things are like all over the place, but nonetheless, there is a distinct sound. Now, his commercial breakthrough album was this one in 1998, Phantasma. Now, the interesting thing about this, the more I started looking at this cover and the color orange, all right, I'm going to pull out the records here. I want to talk more about the cover. All right, so this orange on the back here too, and gatefold, orange on the floor, the orange in the stripes of his shirt. That is a Dan Electro guitar. And he's got stickers that say orange on his amps and everything. But what is noteworthy is you see all the drums and the other instruments, and it's him. A lot of his material, he plays all the instruments. But anyway, so I'm looking at this, and I notice that the phantasm here, it goes Fanta, then zum, SM, phantasms, all right? So, or phantasma, sma, phantasma. And there's no hyphen, which I'm kind of thinking, is probably intentional. That they split this way, and then even though this is a cigarette, you got these bubbles, and the orange Fanta made me think of Fanta orange soda. Soda pop. And this album really has a very, very pop sentimentality about it, even though, as I said, it mixes in terms of stylistics from lots of different things. I mean, so it's got the pop, and it's got some very avant-garde and trash metal and math rock on it, and to a point where some people were kind of comparing him with Beck. But I really kind of believe that he's more sophisticated than Beck with these compositions. Now, that's not to detract from, or to disparage Beck, who's put out some really great material. But I do think that Cornelius is a little bit more sophisticated in the way he melds these various sounds together in a single release that seemingly just splatter all over, but they cohesively fit throughout the album. So it's not just a collection of songs. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a concept album, but it certainly is more than just a collection of songs. So then that was released in 1998, and then it wasn't for 4 years before he released another album, and that next one in the sequence is this one, Point. Now, Point, and this one too is, it's neat. These are all reissues, of course, but it's a double album, and one of the albums you see is the solid white vinyl, and then the other one is solid blue vinyl. Then the, Point on the label. So this is, now you can see the cover is much more minimalistic. And then you just have this on the back. And so there are still a variety of musical influence here, from bossa nova to garage rock and dream pop. But, the name Point, it as it implies, it's a little more focused. So even the words, even the lyrics in the songs are very minimal and act much like points of sound as to being words that are telling a story. And many of the songs are built on loops of samples and loops of other, rhythm instruments, over which he then layers the guitar or whatever else, and also the vocals. You can think of, even as you see here, or a point, as this is spreading out, you can see that this is pointillism. All right? So if you think of it as musical pointillism, like pointillism in art, like Georges Seurat, that famous painting of his, A Sunday Afternoon in the Island of La Grande Jatte. It's a huge, giant canvas that hangs in the Art Institute here in Chicago. And then, some of Van Gogh's work was also pointillist in nature, in that you look at the painting, but then when you get close to it, you see it's not brush strokes, but points, dabs of paint that create the image. And that's kind of what's going on with, at least what I think, with the songs here on this album. So, example, it starts off, and then on side one, other than the thing about the electric last minute of a bug, I think it's being fried in a zapper, is the song Point of View, Point. And so the lyrics, and the other nice thing too is that, when there are lyrics, he's got the lyrics, if they're not if they're sung in Japanese, he'll have the Japanese and then the English for the lyrics. But like the point of view, it's like the words, view, point, down, left, right, top, point, down, left, right, top, point, down, left, right, flat, point, down, view, point of view, point. It's just like a staccato and minimalist approach with many of the lyrics in the songs. Some of them do take a little more, like the song Brazil, which is I haven't checked the lyrics of it to see if it is a cover of the song Brazil, which I think it is, you know, from the movie Brazil. But then even then, it was a song from decades before the film. But even with some of the other ones like Fly, the lyrics are much more laconic and sharp. Suddenly in sight, brush off the leg, orbit to freedom, around the head, fly. Clocks away moving, inside the heat, paces the time, stops on the needle, fly. Outside the window, sudden squall. The fly is above the cloud. So, very poetic in terms of the imagery and in the sparseness. Just really, really interesting album. Now, he had a lot of other releases, but then the third one I did get is more recent. It's this one here, Mellow Waves, which was released in July of 2017. So, interesting, you know, label here with that. A little more sensual artwork. This, for all I know, could be not just a little more sensual. You see the pointillism, though. I mean, even with this woman's breasts here, it's points of ink that are creating this. But this one is I would describe it as a little more empathic, a little more emotional in its sound rather than technical. And it's much more complex than the other two releases that I showed. I'm going to have to give it a few more listens, but I definitely, again, really, really like what I hear. And then the inside of the gatefold. So a lot of these are, I mean, this is a new album, but some of these others are reissues, such as Phantasma. But again, it's one of those situations where I wouldn't even have heard of and then discovered this other than my engaging with other people online and talking about my interest in particular. As I said, started off with expressing my interest in Japanese math rock and jazz fusion, which I have a really long list, and I have some coming in the mail, some Japanese jazz fusion that I hope to be getting within the next week. But that's how I found out about Cornelius. So it's just, great that, people who enjoy listening to music and then sharing that with others, it can really lead you into many other diverse corners of all types of genres. And, watching the various YouTube videos, even if they're compilations of just a bunch of songs that somebody has put together and put on YouTube, going through them and listening to it. And when you find something that is really attracting your attention and sparking your interest, then you can go through their set list and see who the artist is and what album it is from, and then, look it up, whether it's in Discogs to see how readily available it is in the market, or in the All Music Guide to look up some more information. But some of these bands, particularly Japanese bands, they don't have a lot of information. They got a very good entry, though, about Cornelius in the All Music Guide. So, yeah, this is, if you really are into the different combinations of just general, it sounds like 60s kind of pop, but it's definitely postmodern, or even with a thrash or math rock and avant-garde jazz, Hey, check out Cornelius. The videos are on YouTube so that you can listen to the music. I really do recommend it. Are there other albums by Cornelius that you are aware of, that you've listened to, that are perhaps in your collection, or other artists that are similar that you find really intriguing and interesting as well? Leave a comment in the Down Under and share, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like what I'm doing. It's an amazing journey, listening to all this different music. So, leave a message. But always remember, music is for your enjoyment. So be sure to always enjoy your music.